Hello and welcome to the fourth video in all of the things that MEIOU Taxes 3.0 has added to the game since the previous update. And I'm joined once again by Fire Kahuna.
Hello again.
So, where we left off last time was talking about colonization and how that has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, the new expedition system.
So I've gone ahead and got Genoa here to have exploration ideas. They've got the correct technology, and now we've unlocked these expeditions. So how would one go on an expedition?
So each year there is an event that will occur, which will provide you with a list of various places you can send the expedition to if you have the diplomatic tech for it. Those requirements are actually per region, so they're not flat. Like China doesn't require diplomatic authority to explore Japan. It's based on your region, and also just it's based on the location of your capital and which node it's in. So, say the Castile node has different requirements for the English node in terms of what diplomatic tech you need to reach somewhere. So, England might have a bit harder time reaching some areas than say Castile, and especially if you're in the North Sea. And if you're in Korea, then that's a whole other set of requirements.
Right, of course. Of course, we also start a war. I keep choosing countries that start a war. It's great. So if you are, say, in Genoa, then you're going to be starting in the Tyrrhenian Sea node, going through obviously the Strait of Gibraltar, and then is there trade winds are still a thing as well?
Yes, but we don't have any special, use of them, in the sense if they're used for vanilla trade mechanics, they'll apply there, but we don't have any real use for them, for the most part, for colonial range, because they're so short, they probably won't have much of an impact.
Okay.
Yep.
So when did this fire then, I guess, on the 1st of January as well? Oh, no, it fires right now. Lovely. That was kind of the perfect timing.
Yeah.
So, send an expedition to the British Isles sounds like a little bit of a silly idea. The British Isles are fully colonized.
Yeah, so at the moment we're still working on the tech levels and stuff for allowing to send an expedition. If you do, the people there will just decline because you don't have the diplomatic tech, or more so the military tech, sorry, to actually just push your way through and send an expedition and through force of arms. But if you had a very high military tech difference, it's a way basically to take the province, and then the person you've taken it from will get an event to say, what are you going to do about it? And it's mainly for the AI. As we all know, naval AI and EU4 and stuff is just great.
Could do with work.
Yeah. So if you rely on that to take provinces, nothing would really happen.
Right.
As that was a big problem with M&T 2.5. You rely on the AI and the base mechanics, you won't get much in return.
Right, of course. So I guess the smartest one for Genoa maybe would be to go for these the islands here in the Iberian Islands.
Yeah, so there's a expedition just for that.
All right.
So I'll tell you a chance to succeed there.
Let's see what else we've got here as well. Northwest Africa, West Africa, Gulf of Guinea, Central Africa, and I guess this list will expand based on what you can see. And I guess we've taken away Terra Incognita, so it's not helpful. I don't think we'd be able to get to Cuba or something if we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, there'll be a dev diary on this in the future, which will probably clarify, I guess, the link between exploration and expeditions. But for the most part, it's based on, diplomatic tech and your ability to actually get there. So if you have very high diplomatic tech, you don't have much requirements. And past 1800, the colonial range restrictions are also lifted. So, if you want to use traditional colonization at the very end game, that's also an option for you.
Okay.
So yeah, that'll
choose whatever native policy as well. So yeah, we'll see about that colonization thing going on. How long roughly does it take for an expedition to come back?
As I believe it's in February or March the next year. So around March is when these events fire each year.
Okay. Well, I guess we can leave this going in the background, and we'll go back to ideas, because I do believe those have changed as well.
Yes. Genoa would probably be, coincidentally, well, I guess in Genoa we can talk about the base ideas first. So what we went and did was basically just redo every single effect, completely rebalance them, also redo all the localization to generally a bit of shift in ethos of base ideas. It's like best way I can describe it is your progress towards reforming your nation towards a certain concept. So it's not really about like whether you know trade or whether you know naval ideas. It's the orientation of your effort and an active effort to reform towards something that would accommodate it more. So the big reason we went that way is because there's a link now to rights. So some of the rights sets require certain ideas. We've generally tried to loosen it up so different idea sets can unlock the same thing. But if you want to do grand army reforms, you may have to have the standing army set. If you want to do commercial reforms to commercialize, you're going to have to go towards pro-trade ideas. Well, here we go.
There we go. Yes.
But yeah.
All right, so we can go back to ideas in a second. Let's
Yeah.
have a look at this this expedition. So heard back, we have a new province, and I guess there we go. We have now colonized the Azores, and instead of having something tick up over time, we've just literally just taken the province.
Yeah, there's a big issue we're trying to work around. The UI and stuff will update in time. But the biggest issue we have is that in vanilla, if a province gets captured and then lost, for example, goes back to footstone colonized, it wipes out all variables in the province, which you can imagine for us is a death sentence to that province.
Yes,
So
not great.
So yeah, we've had to do a lot of work to just half bypass the base colonization system because there's too many things that can happen, and AI just trying to abandon colonies. So for the first expedition province, we've just had it provide the province. The rest of them will still use the vanilla system. There's just less risk, very less risk of destruction of the colony.
Okay. So I guess maybe it wasn't the greatest one to choose because we don't have actually anything adjacent to it. But if if say we'd done instead the Caribbean, and we'd colonized Higüey here, would we be able to then say, okay, I want to go and colonize Magua and Maguana?
Yes, basically, the range would probably get you to that island nearby. Maybe one of the Leeway Islands. It's often also based on the sea tiles, so there's balancing we can do in the Iberian Islands to try to connect the sea tiles up, just the way the vanilla colonization range works.
Right.
But yeah, basically, if you get an expedition that's somewhere very central, you'll get as a response quite a central base just to explore all the neighboring colonies. And also, as a note there, you're quite lucky in that regard. The base chances aren't that great. So if you could have failed the expedition quite highly, there's idea sets you can adopt, like colonialism ideas, that will decrease the chance of failure for an expedition. So early expeditions might often just lead to nothing, as they did historically, but later on, they should be a lot more reliable.
Lovely. He's one away from being in range. Okay, that's also something new. Advisors are very different. I guess we should talk about those at some point. But first, let's go back to the ideas again.
Yep.
I think we understand now how a bit of colonization works, and it is something definitely that I will do colonization now. In MEIOU Taxes previously, I really didn't like colonization. It wasn't very fun. So this looks like a more interesting system for sure.
Yeah, we're a lot more proud of this one than anything else in 2.5 for colonization.
Awesome, good to hear. Right, so back to ideas then.
Yeah, the main thing we're trying to do is just, besides the ties between ideas and rights, it's just, better balanced modifiers, better balanced sets, new localization, and in all ideas, national or basic, we've tried to integrate 3.0 effects. So a good example is bureaucracy ideas, where, as I mentioned in one of the other videos, we have a whole internal API of modifiers where you can just, change a certain modifier by 0.15 and that adds 15% to a certain thing, which our system will then, with all those bonuses in one variable, it just applies that variable in the system and applies a whole bunch of bonuses. So we've got very good capacity for all sorts of things to affect our systems. So, in bureaucracy ideas, you've got like administration cost, which is an internal thing on the wages you have to pay to bureaucrats.
Okay.
You've got the institutional authority. So bureaucracy ideas can increase the power of the state, and thus, the reliance on the ruler decreases. Yearly clan power. So having bureaucracy ideas means you sort of detribalize the areas that you're in. All the effects are going to be adjusted with time, but it's It's a very good use case at the moment of how we can integrate the 3.0 systems and the vanilla, I guess, ideas and systems.
Well, I do know for 2.5, like my top pick, if I had to choose one idea group that was just it was a must pick every single time, it would have been culture ideas. Is it still quite as good as it used to be? Because I know it used to be necessary to get education. It was huge for your education and just getting cities and getting your trade going well. Culture was really important for that. Is it quite so important now then?
Not as much. So the balancing is generally to sort of normalize the ideas. I'd say the strongest idea set now is actually trade, because at the moment it's the primary path towards commercializing. It's pretty much the best way to reform your state in that direction towards a commercial mentality. And the trade, since all merchants come from trade centers, modifiers to give you more merchants in that regard can be very powerful. But yeah, cultures, it's a bit more focused, I guess, on, it's got base diversions, which will increase the loyalty of all the elites because your culture is, I guess, a lot stronger and they're a lot more proud of that. There's, good idea cost and stuff, but it's maybe not as powerful as it was in 2.5. But the education side and academy side, we're still working on. Like the student system has been replaced with a trade good knowledge, which is traded around the world to both handle it way more better in terms of performance, but more abstractly. You can have there's like a religious education, which all provinces have, that produces the base knowledge for a society for very low literacy levels. And then you've got like higher education, which can produce a lot more. And there's a casual literacy institution that will massively boost education output from all the industries, which will massively increase literacy.
Where would I see the education of an area then?
There's, at the moment, I guess we've focused more on the literacy side. We haven't really focused on education, but in the population tab there, you can see the literacy level of the province.
Okay. I like how not all of the clergy are literate. Like,
I'll note here.
It's our job to read Bibles, but sometimes we don't understand them entirely.
Yeah, I say the nobles are a bit bugged. We're having problems with nobles getting sufficient role in society, I guess, in Italy, where it's so burger-centric that they can maintain all their property shares and stay active. So their literacy level is 1% because they cannot buy any education, basically.
Can't buy the books because the burgers are stealing them all.
Yeah, very literally.
All right, lovely. So we've gone through ideas, we've gone through colonialism. I guess colonialism, sort of ties into a bit of how map has changed as well, because I've heard there are some changes there.
Yeah, so we've done a whole bunch of reworks. The biggest two in terms of their actual impact is the reprojection of Europe and the reprojection of China. So we changed the projection in 2.5 towards a sort of more accurate map projection, but the biggest problem was the provinces weren't really well aligned with that. So we've had redraws of Europe, and I myself have had led a redraw of China as well, to both be very accurate to projection in terms of the province boundaries historically. The big reason that's important is because in 3.0 we have a lot of map data. We use the map like where soil is, where temperature is and stuff, and if you've assigned population values to the province, it's really got to be accurate to the actual land it's on in order to get that sort of information. If you've got a province with a lot of population covering poor land, that's not going to work well with our systems. So most of our redraws have often been in that effect to reduce the role of wastelands and stuff in areas that are not appropriate, make sure areas that have high population have maybe been split up a bit more, and areas that have low population, for example, can be simplified a bit, because the high province density doesn't help as much.
Right.
So, yeah, in East Asia, the two big redraws is Korea, which is a bit more focused on the Joseon dynasty in terms of the province borders, simply because that's where it changes quite soonly after 1356, and then stays there pretty much for the rest of the game.
Okay.
While China's just had a very large redraw with a couple of new provinces, mainly in the southwest, like around Yunnan and the just west of Guangdong.
I don't know enough of Chinese geography. Guangdong is there.
That's
Okay.
the green tag. So just that tag to the left of it, that area's gotten probably a lot of redraw. Sichuan's gotten a lot of splits. Yunnan's been completely redrawn, especially. But all of China's basically just been retraced from scratch using a higher quality source. That's how I can describe it.
I don't know. So there's an awful lot more islands than I'm used to along this coastline.
Yeah, we've on a note there, another thing that's changed in the map is the height map. I've replaced the one we had with one that gels better with the shorelines. It's got more general detail in it, and in the shorelines it'll actually maintain its shape all the way to the shore rather than sort of being smoothed out inland. So some areas like Greece, for example, have got a lot more definition than they did, or Japan, where before it was sort of a bit of a flat land.
I love that. That looks awesome. Flying through and seeing the different heights. That actually looks a lot better.
Yeah, it's especially, for example, the biggest example for me was Calabria in Naples. The peninsula was just utterly flat before, and now it's got its actual 3D definition.
It's a view that you don't often see too much of, because obviously you play around at this height, maybe a bit higher sometimes. Heights don't really make too much difference from up here, but it does look good to zoom in once in a while.
Yep.
And see your floating churches.
Yeah. Aside from the height map in Europe and China, there's been a couple like serious redraws, I guess, where it's more like new provinces and new layouts. Anatolia is a big one, where it's been completely redrawn based on new maps, based on the era of the time. Also more accurate wastelands, and just generally a couple new province splits where it's necessary, like mainly, I guess, in the east, around where the absolutely highly complicated political situation there. We've added some new tags like the Ayyubids and the Artiquids, which are both sort of vassals of the Konyu. God, I'm not doing these names well, but yeah. This area has just gotten a lot more tags on the map, basically, based on new information. So there's a lot more playable things there. They also have new NIs, and generally should be a lot more interesting to play around Anatolia.
Right,
also, the Caucasus got a redraw just nearby, so Georgia's got more of its historical divisions represented, which means we can also do the breakup of Georgia better later on.
Poor Georgia.
Yeah. Other than that, there's been a lot of work in, for example, North Africa, mainly around the wastelands, so that they actually align better with where populations lived and where the population didn't. Especially Algeria, which got a very big redraw. These oases and wastelands they look a lot more realistic. I obviously have no idea where the people live, but you can imagine they don't just live in one amorphous blob. They do actually live, various ways around the place. Yeah, which interfaces well with our systems, because it's where a lot of population around the world is distributed based on province size. So having accurate sizes and accurate land underneath them is important for our systems. There's been redraws in West Africa, in Sudan, also Somalia. Probably got the biggest redraw.
Okay. So which part? Sorry.
Mainly Somalia around Ajiran. That's probably got the biggest redraw.
Lovely. Oh yeah, this definitely looks very different from what I can remember. It's not. It's not an area that I've played too much with, not being a massive fan of the way colonization used to work. But yeah, I can see myself conquering this area now. That might be a thing I would do.
Yeah, accompanying a lot of that is just like I think actually just to finish mentioning the redraws, there's also been one of Eastern Iran to be more accurate. That's another big change, and by memory, Arabia as well. It's got more accurate wastelands as well.
Oh yeah, this definitely looks different. I do remember conquering this area as the Romans. I kind of got sick of being invaded by them, so I think I had Banu Rassi as a vassal owning all of Arabia. It was quite fun.
Yeah, it's there's no Roman conquest complete without conquering Arabia.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Romans didn't manage it, but yeah, I'm going to.
That's it.
Just you got to make the prettiest borders. That's basically the entirety of the goal when you're playing any country.
Yeah. We've also redone Egypt as well with a Finn and Nile because got to make sure you get right along where the population actually was.
And again, seeing the trade routes going up the Nile is and then splitting during the Delta is pretty awesome. I'm a fan.
Thank you. Yeah. So, other than that, I guess there's also been changes to culture groups, mainly just a couple splits here and there, more detail.
I don't know.
Especially, for example,
culture group map mode. I don't know if there is one.
Yeah, culture's got a bit of
I'm sure
attention.
it doesn't matter so much. All right.
Yeah, but other than that, I guess religion so far has been mostly the same since DG is still pending its rework.
Okay. I can see a lot of these. What kind of cultures? Turkmeni is part of the Turkmeni culture. They're spread out quite a bit.
Yeah, the Ulkuz culture group, which is like intermediary between, I guess, Persian and Turkic culture group of the north.
And we've got Romanoi instead of being called Greek or Roman. They're Roman. I like that as well.
Yeah, we've generally done a whole bunch of changes just to try to improve immersion, improve flavor.
That's good to know. Good to see. All right. As we're in this region, I know one of the big things of this era, obviously, the Ottomans expand and then they get brought back down to size by a guy called Timur, and I know there is some changes when it comes to him as well.
Yes, the first biggest change is that he now exists, and there's actual mechanics for him.
Nice.
Not the case in previous versions. So we've got a whole disaster chain and event chain based around the rise of Timur in the chaos that was Transoxiana or the Chagatai Khanate, where historically it had sort of split between Mogulistan and the Chagatai, and Chagatai had some weak rulers, but that really entered the next phase in the next couple of years. Mogulistan invades, and in that chaos, they help, I guess, Timur to rise, and then he turns around after the ruler dies and that union breaks to usurp the Chagatai Khanate and basically create his own dynasty. And as we all know, go on a massive war of conquest. So that's all represented. There's an event chain for that, and then there's two paths mainly. There's the western path, which gives you a very powerful ability to conquer territory in the west. So it's very possible to reach the Ottomans. I believe I've seen the AI come close quite a few times. And there's the eastern path, which is taking advantage, I guess, of the disunity of the Mongol Empire to usurp the existing Khanates and reforge it once more. So you get a sort of short window before they all die and crash and burn to try to rebuild it one last time.
That sounds awesome. That sounds like something that I would definitely want to play.
Yeah,
Timurids are quite fun in vanilla. I can generally imagine that, as with most things, MEIOU Taxes improves on that as well.
yeah, he's quite fun, just not for his enemies, because
no,
the kill counts can get very high. I myself managed to kill 32 million people in one playthrough. It can get pretty
there you go. That's a challenge then. When everyone gets their hands on MEIOU Taxes 3.0, try and get the most amount of kills.
Just worth mentioning, the M&T team does not condone violence in any form.
Unless it's against ones and zeros.
That's it.
So
Numbers are the
tag
enemy.
for Transoxania.
I believe it's CHG.
CHG.
I've had to learn a lot of these off by heart.
Yeah, I can imagine. So obviously I don't think Timur has risen yet, but
No.
you said about kill counts. How would one go about finding their kill count?
So, as a sort of just for Timur, we've added an atrocities measure, which is displayed to everyone after he dies, just to help contextualize, the realities of his glorious conquests and what they actually meant. But Yeah, there's an atrocity counter in there, but for the most part, Timur's rise will not happen for another 10 years, or it happens over the course, I guess, of the next 10 years. So it's around the 1370s that he first emerges, and pretty much 30 to 40 years of conquest will follow, and it's not going to be good for anyone who's playing nearby. So you may want to nip that in the bud before it can get too late.
You've added an atrocities counter. Good lord.
Yeah.
That's no. I'm totally in favor. Count your atrocities, guys. So Timurd's gonna be that's the challenge nation now, isn't it? Just now that you've got a kind of a high score to reach towards, kill as many as possible, and then post your results on the forums.
Yeah, there's also a loot tally, so you can see how much loot you can collect from the neighboring populations, and it can get quite insane.
Yeah, I do remember. Was it when Count Christo did his world conquest? He was at war for like the last 2 centuries straight, and then getting all of the loot at the end of the game all at once was it didn't help his country at all, because I mean the game's over, but it was quite high.
Yeah, could have built up the entire world easily.
Or burn it, and it's more his style. Lovely. So Timurids, in vanilla they had quite a lot of vassals at the start of the game. Have vassals changed and subjects changed?
Yeah, so Timur is actually a very good example of that, because when he dies, his empire will collapse. As a player, you can decentralize it, pick different areas where you create vassals, but those vassals use our new subject rework, which is mainly a new sort of series of types. So you have, in vanilla, you just have vassals, and you have marchers, and you have tributaries, I believe, are the 3 main types, and personal unions. In this, we've added a bunch of different vassal types. So there's the vassal, which is your standard, bog vassal, which is the diplo slot. There is feudataries, which is sort of like the daimyo vassals of Japan, but generalized. They even use the same mechanic, which is where you have a bunch of more autonomous vassals that can, with a certain government form, get the same sort of mechanics that Japan had, where they can, fight each other and ally different people. So feudataries are sort of like your loose vassal, where they're still very firmly under your control and they have to rebel, but they can do a lot of things under your wing. And then there's a division above that, which is divisions, which are sort of like your decentralized vassals, basically. Where you say a large empire might break itself into very autonomous groupings, like the Mamluks, which is all the new tags there are divisions. I believe Damascus and Hejaz are direct divisions of Egypt, while Al-Quds is a division of Jerusalem. Of Damascus. Yep.
All right, lovely.
They've all got different rules, different laws. Divisions have a special mechanic where they can turn rebellious if you don't keep their liberty desire under 50. So, and that means they'll be able to do a lot of the things that a feudatory can. So they're very powerful when they're loyal, and they can be a real pain when they're not, and it can be a pain to get them back to a regular vassal. Basically, you have to reassert your control.
So don't let them go over 50. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's key. For some nations like the reworked India, Hindustan, it's a bit too late for that, especially when the rule does.
They've got quite a lot of tributaries, quite a lot of feudatories as well, and they've also got some divisions, and I guess that's not going to last.
Yeah, I believe they have a war quite soon after game start with Bengal, and usually even with that size, they've pretty much degenerated internally with their political situation that they often lose that war. Actually, most of the time they lose that war.
As a player, you can turn it around. Give it a try.
Yeah, good luck.
Love it. So I know India is very, I guess, infamous or famous, depending on your perspective, for having quite a diverse amount of religion within it. And I know that there is also something new to do with religion, or religious minorities.
Yes. Mainly minorities at the moment, since we're still heavily reworking DG and its whole event structure. But one of the big things M&T is known for is its religious minorities, and we've rebuilt that system, as with, I guess, everything. But we've rebuilt it on a new sort of slot-based framework which can support, I believe, up to 5-6 different minorities at once, but at a completely fine-grained level. So per percentage of a percentage point, and those religious minorities generally a lot more resilient, and they also have their own mechanics behind them. Like there's a entrenchment and infrastructure system where basically a religious minority has a measure of how well established it is in the province, with temples and networks and influence. And the best way to convert a minority, I guess, is to actually attack its infrastructure rather than directly trying to convert the population. Basically, conversion will be a lot easier if you can weaken the infrastructure. But the main thing is it's a much more, I guess, higher fidelity system, and it's got rural, urban, and notable. So you can convert the elite, convert the urban, you convert the rural, and generally, large rural populations will convert a lot later than, say, a small minority of notables. So means we can plug it into different political systems, like having more or less disloyal elites based on whether you converted them first or not, etc. So it's an example, I guess, of how we can rework DG to be, keep all the old features, but just be higher performance and just more high detail and better integrated.
Are there any Norsemen?
We may not have accounted for it yet, but a good benefit of this is that the system can support really any number of minorities, so we can bring back a lot of those minority religions that otherwise would have been culled in 2.0 because of performance reasons.
Yes, I wish to rebuild the North Sea Empire or King Canut's Empire as a Norseman. That's the goal. In real life as well as in game. No, but yeah, having granularity of your populations, like not everyone believed the same thing. It's not like, oh, the religion of this province is Hindu, therefore everybody in it believes in the Hindu religion. That's not the case.
Exactly. There's minorities to account for. There always has been.
Awesome. Very good stuff.
Yeah.
So Digrasha is not fully implemented yet, but that is something that will be coming. I think that's what Gigot is working on, right?
Yeah, that's his main project, aside from all the various map modding that we task him towards. And he loves to do himself. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
He is indeed a busy man. But yeah, I'm blown away with just how much there has been added to the game. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of like small things. Like we've completely reworked national ideas. We've added some new systems in play, like the Anatolian power balance system for the Ottomans to, I guess, provide more flavor for one of the most prominent tags, I guess, of this era. We've got a lot to show, and be good to release it at some point in the future.
No notice on when exactly that might be.
None yet. Stay tuned.
Very nice. Well, is there anything else that you would like to point out?
I guess the main thing is that the main reason we've redone so much, even if it's still quite similar to 2.5 in some ways, is mainly we wanted to do, I guess, more with less. We've ran into a lot of walls with 2.5, so it's taken some time, but we're quite happy with the results of years of toiling, because it's we've got a much better foundation, and a lot of these things are more naturally interconnected, naturally, I guess, performant, which means we can add more and more and not really run into the same risks of, I guess, a performance wall that everyone knows, I guess, 2.5 was really running into. So yeah, thank you for the patience, because we hope to release something good and something we're quite proud of.
Well, I've not been let down by MEIOU Taxes yet, so I would wager that probably this time's going to be just the same. Everyone's going to be quite happy with it. I hope.
I do hope someone did.
All right, well, lovely. Thank you so much for coming on this little journey with me and showing me all of the new features that are coming in MEIOU Taxes 3.0. I'm going to go and try and understand some of these new systems and try and play a bit. I think it's going to take a little while before I'm fully comfortable with a lot of the new systems, and it is a lot has changed. I think it's definitely fair to say.
Absolutely. You know, we hope to provide some resource and stuff as well and release like, you know, like a wiki and other things to help, I guess, in those times where, you know, and of course the most important thing is just we can try to show as much in game as much as possible so you don't have to resort to wiki. But if you need it, we're hoping to provide a lot of resources to help players understand just what the hell is going on.
Lovely. All right, well, thank you very much, Fire Kahuna. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be speaking again as I have questions on just what the hell's going on in my game. So yeah, thank you all just very much for watching as well.
Yeah,
thanks to
good to
Fire
be here.
Kahuna and the entire MEIOU Taxes team for knocking it out of the park again.
Yeah, it's good to be here and good to talk 3.0. Keen
Lovely.
to see what's in the future.
Yes, I'm sure there'll be more updates coming all the time. It's just
Yeah, stay tuned. And our Discord has a lot of teasers from here and there, so just a shout out there.
Yep, there will be a link to that in the description below. So, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this this little mini series of what's new in MEIOU Taxes 3.0. And yeah, if you liked it, like button, comments down below. I'll be reading them and trying to answer as many questions as I can, which probably won't be much because I don't understand this very much yet. But I'll try. Thanks all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.